My name is Phumzile Mlambo-Ngucka, and I am also part of Colmena Fund.
This is Colmena Fund.
Welcome to the Colmena Fund podcast. Resist, persist, and reimagine, where we explore the voices, the strategies, and stories behind women's political leaderships across the global south. For today's episode, we had the honor to interview a truly trailblazing leader, who is also a member of the Colmena Fund steering committee. She made history as the first woman to serve as Deputy President of South Africa, holding office from 2004 to 2008. And from 2013 to 2021, she led global efforts for gender equality as the Executive Director of UN Women. In this episode, we'll hear about her journey, the challenges women face to participate in politics, and the insights she brings to today's struggles for feminist political leadership. Let's get started.
Well, it was important for me to get involved in politics as a young student in a country that was ruled by Apartheid because we needed change and we needed to mobilize. I was mobilized myself then. I also took it upon myself to mobilize other young people, and I stayed in the struggle, and that really consumed me at the time. By the time I finished studying, I was clear that getting involved with the work that addresses the issues that we're against was going to be my top priority. And if I think about women's struggle, for instance, which was also part of Apartheid, it said that we're not done. And I'm talking about the time when we started, which was in the 1970s, and now we're in 2025. And the job is not fully done.
Resist, persist, and reimagine. While there have been significant gains towards gender equality, women continue to face deep structural barriers that limit their political participation. These include patriarchal norms, limited access to financial resources, violence, abuse, harassment, and the absence of legislative quotas to ensure fair representation. These challenges don't just hold women back. They hold back democracy itself.
The challenges of the women in South Africa are similar to the challenges of women anywhere else in the world. The issue of violence against women, most of the violence is with partners and people women know, but also violence in public spaces. Some women meet their perpetrators in public spaces. The challenge of representation. In some parts of the South African politic, representation is not too bad, especially in the public sector. But in the private sector, for instance, women are underrepresented at the senior spaces. So that remains a fight. But sometimes also in the public sector, you have to continuously fight for the quality of the women who represent you, to push that they choose women who can do the job. Women in South Africa have the same challenges about poverty. Poverty still wears a woman's face in South Africa. And now with the way technology has advanced, the gender digital divide impacts on women and girls in South Africa. So if we think about the priorities that UN Women has identified as part of Beijing 30, those priorities affect us in South Africa as much as they affect the women globally, as UN Women has identified.
This is Colmena Fund.
According to the UN report, Women's Right in Review 30 years after Beijing, there are 6 key initiatives that can drive meaningful change. A digital revolution for all women and girls. Freedom from poverty. Zero violence. Full and equal decision-making power. Peace and security. Climate justice. In regards to women's political participation, the report states that women represent just 27% of national parliamentarians globally, and yet the decisions that shape their lives are overwhelmingly made by men. This is not only unjust, but inefficient. When women are involved in politics, we see more inclusive decisions, diverse solutions, and stronger economic outcomes.
It's important for women to be involved in the politics of their countries so that they can be insiders, because in politics, people listen to the people who they think are like them. So when women become part of the political scene of a country, they then have a stake, in the politics. So showing up is absolutely important, but also always being prepared so that by showing up, the women are able to deliver on the tasks at hand. In many of the countries, citizens complain, for instance, about the delivery of services that they need. When women get involved in politics, it's always important that they do their best, that citizens must not complain about the women and regard them as the people who are failing to provide delivery of services. It's also important that women are active in the debates of the organizations they are part of, to make sure that their voices, their ideas are also being heard and are implemented.
Persist, and reimagine. As we mentioned at the beginning of the episode, lack of funding is one of the biggest barriers preventing women, especially those from marginalized communities, from entering and thriving in informal political spaces. That's why we're deeply committed to using philanthropy as a tool for change, to shift power, open doors, and create better outcomes for everyone.
Philanthropy is very important and will be important in the future, because philanthropy is solidarity. It is the solidarity expressed by those who have resources to support the other people in their important endeavors of making their lives better. And it will always be important as humanity to show that solidarity to each other. And now that solidarity of the philanthropist is very much important, because we are now at the end of receiving overseas development. This is the end of ODA, and in some ways it is important that we move away from ODA, because ODA actually does suppress the capacity of nations to stand by themselves, and corrupt and inefficient governments of the South begin to rely on ODA and not do what they're supposed to do in their own countries. There is something wrong when a government in the South is over-dependent for the health needs of their citizens on foreign governments. So as much as it's hurting us and it's difficult, and philanthropy can help to intervene and cushion the pain that the governments in the South will feel, but in the long term, we have to live in countries that don't depend on ODA. This is, I think, a time for us to end ODA, but we must have fair terms of trade. The cost of capital to developing countries must not be as expensive as it is today.
This is Colmena Fund.
According to the latest OECD data, bilateral aid for gender equality dropped in 2021-2022 for the first time in 10 years. This includes cuts to funding for government and civil society initiatives focused on advancing women's rights. This decline is a part of a broader and more alarming trend: the rise of far-right governments and anti-rights movements around the world. These forces are pushing harmful laws that restrict reproductive rights, weaken protections against gender-based violence, and increase threats against women in politics. As civic space continues to shrink, women and girls are facing even greater barriers to participation, leadership, and safety. Our guest reflects on what this moment means and how we must respond.
This era that we have of strong men who are dictatorial, who are cruel, who are sexist, who are racist, who have disregard for international law. All of those things impact on women and women's rights. I think women who are not bound by the institutions that they are part of should really make their views known about all of these issues and how much they reject this kind of imposition by these groups. Sometimes governments cannot resist as much as women can resist, because they have to manage some diplomatic relations. Women don't have to manage any diplomatic relations with any dictator. Women must make their voices known, and that is also where there's space to resist. They should show their disagreement by using the methods that are not just passive. They should actively resist all of these dictatorial tendencies, erode, for instance, the sovereignty of countries. And sovereignty is important for women too. Women must make sure that they are not only concerned with just the issues that are very specific for women. They must also be concerned about all the issues in their countries, because those are the issues that chip on the different opportunities that could be important for advancing gender equality. Really, democracy means we all do our best in our countries to give each other freedom. Freedom to speak, freedom to live our lives that are fulfilled, to have access to education, access to health needs, and to be active in the economy, and not to have any barriers that discriminate against some group and advantage the other group. And we have leaders that are accountable, that do things on our behalf in consultation with us and become accountable to us when times are bad and when times are good. It is not right that when people have been elected, they just stay up there and do their own thing without any consultation with the citizens. In a democracy, you have to and fro. It is a consultative process. You inform your government, you give it response, you support your government. When they struggle, you support, but you can only do that when you know what they are doing, why they are doing, and if this is what you elected them to do.
Resist, persist, and reimagine. That brings us to the end of our episode. We're grateful to our guest for sharing such powerful insights, and to all of you for tuning in and being part of this conversation. If you found this episode meaningful, please subscribe, share, leave a review, or send it to someone who needs to hear it. You can learn more about our work at the Colmena Fund by visiting our website or following us on social media. Join our Colmena Hive to stay connected, amplify women's political power, and help us build more inclusive, democratic societies together. We'll be back soon with more voices from the front lines on our podcast, Resist, Persist, and Reimagine. Thank you for listening.
This is Colmena Fund.